Welcome to the Ahoy Arena in Rotterdam. We are minutes away from the LEC Spring Split Finals. Roman's been doing a pretty good job of making these guys yell and scream, but I want to see how smart you are. If I were to say League of, you would say League of League of Legend! Nicely done!
Great shot. This is cute, but we have been rehearsing some stuff. So, Rotterdam, what is your region?
That's cute. That's not bad. It sounds very familiar to a call that a certain other European country may have done before. So, have you just copied what the French have done, Romain?
Well, I might happen to be French, but it's okay. I have another trick in the book. Rotterdam, if I double clap in my hand, you stop.
Rotterdam! What is your region? 13 weeks ago, the League of Legends European Championship began with 10 teams fighting for the title. 7 of them failed to make it to Rotterdam. And yesterday, the defending champions Fnatic got deconstructed and eliminated from title contention. The 2 best teams in Europe take to this stage to do battle for the right to be crowned your champion. Rotterdam, who will win the title? G2 or Origen? Battling in the top lane! G2's Wonder! Origen's Alvari! Roaming the jungle, both looking for their first European titles. G2's Yankos! Origen's Cool! Battling for control of the mid lane! Spring Split MVP, Caps! The man with the champion ocean, nuked up! Taking control of the bot lane 2v2. Swap Captain Perks. Support Mickey. OG Boss Patrick. And returning to a European final, it's Mickey. Four-time European champions, G2 Esports. Third-time finalists, Origen.
doubted them, and they will fight for the title in Rotterdam.
After we won game one, I couldn't be going to be a sleep. Our goal is to start the new LEC of Origen here and let's just pass G2.
Because of that captain, so much that connect! You've got Joshua back, he's out of there, he's gone!
Whoever is in front of us is over to have it here. When G2 went up against Origen the last time, Perks made Power even get subbed out and made XP coming instead. And I wonder if XP is going to have to come in and fill up the mid lane role after I'm done with it.
To win in Rotterdam would mean everything. It's my ultimate goal for like 6-7 years.
I'm never happy just being healthy. I made my 6th final. I tend to perform when it matters.
It starts here, the LEC Spring Finals. Welcome to the cast today. I'm Quickshot, joined by Froskurin and Verius. And boy, oh boy, are we in for a treat. G2's era of dominance started here 3 years ago. And Origen are going to try to prevent it from happening again.
Yes, they certainly are. And we couldn't ask for more, Quickshot. We have fantastic players. We have fantastic storylines. We have a fantastic crowd. And we have everything we need to make a fantastic final here for the first LEC trophy.
You've got the fantastic opening ceremony and that brand new trophy right there.
I really like the fact that Roman's taught this crowd a few tricks. Rotterdam, what is your region? Oh. There's too much power to wield. We are jumping into the finals. The title is on the line as we look towards the draft, Verius and Froskurin. Question on my mind that the analyst desk touched on, we saw last night in NALCS, Sona Tarek. Are we gonna see it today?
I think it's really important to recognize why Sona Tarek appeared in the best of 5 yesterday, and I felt like it was actually a really good read from Origen on Fnatic's bot lane. You know that Fnatic like to play through that bot lane, and Sona Tarek is just unbreakable here. But today, I think that might be a different story.
I feel like the issue that you can run in with the Sona Tarek is that it is an abusable lane, and if G2 have the opportunity to attack a lane, they definitely will. They love to try and focus in on those weak points, so I'd be very surprised if we did in fact see any priority on the Sona Tarek. I think coming into this draft that G2 will stick to what they did last time. Heavy priority on taking the Draven away from the bot lane. Heavy focus on taking Cold off of the Karthus, and maybe even looking to take away the Galio away from Mythy.
And I think all of those should see bans or at least priority picks coming through, but we're also kind of talking about this pick of Rise, how it was so potent and powerful the last time Origen faced G2, and how Caps just dominated a game on it, forcing bans. And so these are kind of the champions that we're working with as we head into this initial draft.
Yeah, I'm also keeping my eyes on things like the Kayle. Origen so far have banned it consistently throughout playoffs, and it brings it to the question, do they even have it as an option for themselves? If they always have to ban that champion away from the likes of G2, they hinder themselves, especially given how flexible G2 is as a team.
All right, G2 Esports are starting on the blue side in game 1 of the finals. You can see our brand new LEC trophy sitting in between the players on display. This is what they are fighting for. And Jankos, one of the players chasing his first title. Caps looking for the 3-peat. Let's get some prediction goggles on. We've theorized some of the strengths and weaknesses. Knowing G2 are blue side, what do you expect to see banned in this first game?
So again, if you're taking the blueprint that we saw last time that G2 faced Origen in round 2 of our playoff matchup, it was about the Rek'Sai priority. And it was the fact that Origen felt that they were confident to take Jarvan Rek'Sai every single time. And I'm curious if that's going to be the exact same roadmap this time around. Because G2 are thinking, hey, we just 3-0'd you. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
I completely agree with you, Frosk, and as we jump into the draft, already the priority is going to go straight towards the bot lane from the side of G2. They're going to take the Draven off the board, and they're actually going to take the Jarvan off the board. Now, this is something that Origen have prioritized throughout the playoffs so far. They love the flexibility that they can have between the top and jungle, and it's something that Cold likes to run into the Rek'Sai as well, which, funnily enough, they immediately ban off the board.
Exactly. At that point, it's either you ban the Rek'Sai and you make sure that you get Cold a matchup that he's comfortable with, or maybe Cold starts to reach for something like that Skarner. So the jungle pools are obviously what both teams are focusing on here today. And Jankos versus Cold, very different style of junglers. Jankos, very explosive, gank heavy, whereas Cold is more of that cerebral, path-oriented jungler.
And last weekend when these two teams met, Cold looked very good in that matchup.
Now remember that the Kayle priority is something we talked a lot about. She has been left open, but instead G2 go for the classic Aurelia. Now, for many teams, you'd think this could be flex between top and mid, but with the addition of perks in the bot lane, this is a triple flex and can be moved into multiple positions, so a very safe blind pick for the side of G2.
And it's one of the terrifying things about G2 is not just how well they can flex the champion, but how well each of those 3 members can pilot the champion. If you think about G2, what is their playstyle? Why have they been so dominant? It's that you pick anyone to focus in a team fight, you will learn something about League of Legends. The mechanical ceiling that each of these players have is incredible. They are one of the strongest teams that Europe has ever assembled.
Now, something else we spoke about was this Galio, and last week, G2 were very determined to ban this one away from Mythy. So Origen, they grab it very early on, and I'm wondering if they look to pair it up with the Kalista, but with the Rise still available, you'd have to imagine that being the priority.
And you know what's interesting? I actually think this Jarvan ban that G2 leverage at Origen might actually work out for them, because it means that they don't have to second rotate Jarvan Galio. We see that Cannonball, hard engage combo all of the time, but now that they don't have access to having Jarvan since it was banned away, it allows them to blind pick the Rise from red side and deny it from G2.
And ladies and gentlemen, Sona Taric. It is something that we talked about. It is secured in a combination with the Irelia, and I don't want to spoil things, but if you watched NALCS last week, this combo was deadly.
I mean, it was pretty deadly in the hands of Origen yesterday when they won that second game against Fnatic. And the thing is, the moment G2 saw that Galio lock in, they're like, oh, you're not going to play Blitzcrank. So we're pretty confident in locking this one in because we think we're fine playing into that Galio bot lane. But with the Varus, there is a lot of setup on the bot side for the side of Origen, and they're going to still feel pretty confident that they can look to dive this and put it behind.
And when we were talking about Sonic Taric, we did not want Origen to pull it because you're like, you cannot give a weak side of the map to G2. They will exploit you. Now Origen have this opportunity. We expect that Sona and Taric will get pushed in, that G2 will lose control over the bottom lane in the early levels of jungle. So all eyes go on Cold. You have the Varus, you have the Galio, you have so much priority to push down there. Can you as a jungler abuse G2, this small window that they've given you, before Sona and Taric take over team fights?
Sometimes I would say maybe or no. With Cold, I say yes. This has been one of the best splits of his entire career. And you can see now the jungle pool continues to get pinched. The Sejuani taken away. Gangplank has now been denied in the second phase as well.
Now remember, the Origen also get priority, so they get to choose their jungler, so they're not afraid to just keep banning this role out.
Which is why I really like the Gangplank ban from G2 here, because it's saying, okay, our bot lane's going to be in a bit of a struggle situation, at least early on. Let's take away a champion that has a massive ultimate that can also contribute to the bot lane like the Cannon Barrage.
And with the Akali ban, this actually suggests to me that Origen might look for a priority on Hecarim and then save their jungle for the final pick. Perhaps give Cold something like a counter. Because I think right now, the Origen, they have a lot of tools in their kit to just team fight. They can also play on multiple lanes. Like, there's a lot of options in their kit. If they just throw in the Hecarim right now, I feel like they have a fantastic dive bomb comp. But at the same time, you are drafting teamfight into a Taric zone.
I think it's just kind of that great mixture of having teamfight presence as well as the side lane presence. And like you're saying, there needs to be an emphasis there because you are facing G2 with such a defensive line on Sona Taric.
Yesterday, of course, it was Origen that ran that Blitzcrank into the duo in Game 1 against Fnatic. That worked so well. But Vedius, you mentioned the dive bomb style comp with Nocturne being locked in for the jungle. Makes you think it's becoming maybe more and more likely, or at least can be powered up. If G2 are not grouped together, then that is where they can get picked off.
Yeah, it's about making those picks, but if it does come to 5v5, if we are playing around the Baron and Origen are forced to try to make an assassination play with the likes of the Galio and the Nocturne, Cold needs to be far ahead on this champion to have any sort of kill pressure against the likes of G2's comp.
Now G2, they have gone for the very early game focused jungler in the form of the Olaf. Typically does pretty well into the Nocturne as well. So they have a favorable jungle matchup and it will give them the ability to gain priority. And if they do pair this up with a Lissandra, which they do, it means that towards the top side of the map, G2 have a lot of control right now. Very strong 2v2 jungle and 2v2 top jungle means that G2 can just gain a lot of early map pressure.
It also means that with this jungle matchup, you talked about the skirmish potential of Olaf, all of that advantage that Varus and Galio, Origen's bot lane, had over the Sona Taric can now be eliminated or at least contested. It's now about setup. The bottom side of the map isn't free-handed to Origen because they took a step back by taking a scaling jungle and Nocturne.
And as expected there, Vedius, the Hecarim is secured and locked in. So let's step back and talk about what we see in the greater scheme of things. You sounded a little nervous about this team fight combination from the side of Origen. Now you see both comps. How do you feel, Betty?
Well, it's one of those situations where whenever you're running Sona Taric, I always ask myself how much damage they have, and then I remind myself, oh yes, once Sona gets like 2-3 items, she too actually has a surprising amount of damage in the late game. But when you are running like dive comps, the thing you always have to be mindful of is how quickly can you assassinate a target. And when there is a Lissandra, there's an Olaf, and the Sona Taric is there, it can be challenging. But I feel like when you look at this draft, OG is saying, let's kill the Sona as fast as humanly possible, and then we'll clean up the rest later.
It's the fact that you have multiple win conditions. You know, if Origen do get ahead, they can look for that assassination potential, trying to make the poke on Sona. Or if they do fall behind, they say, we're not going to play into the 5v5. Let's just split up and try to eat this map up. Whereas on the other side from G2, this is a very scary composition. Not only its skirmish potential with Olaf, Aurelia, and then the zone control of Lissandra, but when they are bundled up as that death ball, they are almost impossible to kill.
I think this is going to be a pretty explosive game. I think we're seeing a lot of adaptation already from the side of Origen. Remember, one of the reasons why they struggled last week against G2 was when they had losing bot lanes. They definitely don't have a losing 2v2 down towards the bot side of the map, and they have a lot of options to play around it as well. I think it's going to come down to a lot of team fights. I think objectives are going to be a really big deal in this one quick shot, and I'm really excited because I think that this time around, Origen are going to put up a much better fight.
Absolutely the case. Origen have continued to impress and continue to develop after each and every game and each and every loss. They have got themselves another shot here at G2, and more importantly, a shot at the title. It's the LEC Spring Split Finals between G2 Esports and Origen. Ladies and gentlemen, here at the Ahoy in Rotterdam, put your hands together for Game 1 of G2 versus Origen. If you guys are watching at home, just a quick update, and if you go check out twitch.tv/RightGames2, you can actually watch through the eyes of our Spring Split MVP in his very own POV cam. It starts here. The finals are underway for Oscurin. What can we expect during the opening minutes of this game?
I think all eyes are going to be on the early jungle pathing, particularly from Jankos, because he does have a lot of that agency on the champion like Olaf, versus Cold, who's going to be trying to play for control and playing for that level 6 paranoia.
Yeah, I think the Nocturne wanting to get level 6 as fast as possible will be the most important. I'm keeping my eyes out on the level 1. Something that G2 did a lot of the last time these two teams met was crazy level 1s. It is why Origen fell behind in a couple of their games, and you can see Origen kind of pathing out pretty spaciously, just keeping an eye out to see if G2 try anything sneaky, but with the Sona Tarek, their options are a little more limited than they were with the Rakan last week. So nothing too crazy going to come out in level 1. Looks like a very standard start to the game.
And again, we need to pay attention to how well the Sona and the Tarek will play the lane and what Perks and Mickey can do with this combo, because we saw both sides of it from Origen and Fnatic yesterday, and basically every single time it seemed to get jammed, shoved underneath the tower, and that is one of the powers of Varus, is that he can turn on lane priority so quickly.
Now, as a reminder, for those that may not be familiar with this bot lane, Tarek will soak up the majority of the farm up until Perks fully stacks up his support item, and then once it is fully stacked, they'll start investing resources into the Sona. But it's not about winning lane, it's just about getting as much gold onto these two carries as possible and scaling to the team fights. Typically seeing things like the Archangel Staff and the Lich Bane on the Sona, which is really when she becomes this powerhouse, providing a lot of utility, a lot of healing, and a lot of damage.
Yeah, it's just that about that ability to kite back, to absorb all of the damage. And with Origen's composition, again, if they don't get that initial assassination, the longer a fight stretches on, the more Tarek and Sona will just take over everything.
And one of the scariest things about Sona Tarek is you might think that, oh, they've got no frontline, they've got no real tanks, so doing the Baron is difficult, but because of the amount of healing that this duo provides, it's actually very effective around the Baron, because they can actually stall it out for a very long time. So those Baron baits are very real and can be very, very scary from the side of G2.
Yeah, one of the nice things about Tarek is because he can reset his heal on the auto attack. Zyrene talks about this a lot. He can actually do a Baron with just 3 members as long as the Tarek and Sona are there. So again, if someone like the Aurelia or the Olaf even get ahead, G2 can actually just walk as a 3-man unit and do the Baron no problem.
Long time away, that Baron at the moment. Cold is going to be making a small attempt at Wonder. No ward here from the G2 side, so Flash may be expended. That's already done so. That's a very good double stun. That was truly a flawless duet. And it does expand the Flash, so successful gank from Coles.
Now, in early levels, Hecarim, especially without a flash, typically gets pushed in. It's not until he hits that level 6 mark where he can really start to look to play the lane a little more aggressively. So that's why he's getting pushed in under his tower very early. I am surprised that Wonder didn't use his ward in the Tribush. It's obviously on cooldown, so he used it elsewhere, either in the Pixel Brush or in the River Bush. But he was very pushed up, exposed to a gank. He was forced to flash away, which means that there's a slight advantage now for Alphari in this 1v1. And Cold could look to play around this top side of the map while the bot side is just slowly building up an advantage. But at the same time, notice how the Tarek and the Varus are actually very even right now in the lane.
And it feels like both junglers are reading the same situation as Cold is sneaking in this back brush here.
Oh, 2v2 on the cards. Jankos is coming out. Now the Undertow's available. Duet will not find a stun. That's at least a devastating charge. Continue to push forward. Wonder forced to dash to safety. The ignites. Oh, the burn is not going to be enough just yet. G2 first blood. The first blood king does it in the final.
Disaster there for Origen. The fact that Alphari didn't have the mana. He had wasted a lot of those Qs trying to push forward the minion wave, and it felt like a bit of indecision. Is Cold there because they expect Jankos to be there to match a 2v2 gank, or is Cold there because they're just trying to help Alphari reset the wave to get a cheeky back off?
It's one of those situations where because you have Ignite, you feel that you can look to win that 2 versus 2. And again, we don't have time because another gank happening mid.
Yes, we are. Nukedak has still got the flash available. Rune Prism will buy some time. Continues to escape for now. Throws down the Summoner. Teleport was just used and not going to be able to escape with his life. Phase Rush gets him just out of range.
Beautiful stuff there from Nukeduck. Very patient playing. Notice how he held his ground, procced his Summoner spells, and then used the bonus movement speed from the Phase Rush, as you highlighted, Quick Shot, to get out of that situation. So still has his Summoner spells. Jankos looking to be very aggressive in this early game.
And it feels like on a champion like Olaf, Averius, that's kind of what you want to see, kind of what you want to happen. Cold did get that Summoner flash up top, currently level 4. making his way to that paranoia, but I want to see how and where OG decide to invest the resources once he gets access to that paranoia.
Now, a couple of things. We talked about how G2 are going to have full control over the top side of the map because their 2v2 mid and mid jungle and top jungle are very strong with the Olaf, and Jankos has been fully capitalizing on it. You can see he has top scuttle, he's been able to get this deep control ward in, but the problem for bot side is they actually got frozen, and this leaves them open to ganks. You can see Patrick has started to build up a gank.
Oh, good damage onto Caps. This is OG on the board. Caps just caught out of position, it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like he just lost track of where Alfari was. Didn't expect the Hecarim to make a rotation down there, was probably looking for the back and just wandered into him. So trying to scout some early vision, and now Wonder.
All right, let's see. Wonder how, and I wonder why he pushed forward onto Alfari. Now Nuke's gonna flash in.
Flash.
Stands in the side, and that's just easily done here for Origen. 2 kills to 1, and they turn the gold favor in there.
And they feel like just small mistakes from the side of G2 that Origen were very quickly able to capitalize on. Finding a kill onto both Caps and Wonder this early into the game is a very big pickup for Origen.
And as we take another look at that, yeah, Caps actually had information about exactly where Alfari was, but didn't have information about where Nukeduck was. He actually walked into a control ward underneath, and surprise, it's a 2v1.
Well, that feels bad because he's on the POV stream as well, just stepping all the way forward and getting done.
Surprising blunder from the MVP of the spring split. We'll see if he can shake it off and bounce back. Right now, both he and Wonder sit with the solo deaths, and we were just talking about how G2 was supposed to have control over the top side while their bot side fell to a deficit. So the fact that those two solo laners are now sitting on a death is definitely not the early game that G2 had planned for themselves.
But they can still try to pivot either way. Again, the fact that it is an Olaf, that Cold has been delayed a little bit, although he did pick up a lot of that mid lane experience, now has the Paranoia available. You thought that there was a big window where Jankos could try to maybe swing one of his side lanes, maybe rotate the Lissandra to the bot lane, and try to contest Origen when they do decide to turn on Galio Barris.
I'm going to take a look at those teleport cooldowns and see whether or not it syncs up with any proactive plays, but we're nearly 8 minutes in. This bot lane of Taric and Sona, 14 CS for Perks' Sona, 42 for Mickey's Taric. I want to take a look at the gold differences between the two duos. If the observers can toggle over, it works out roughly the same amount of gold. I think there's about 300 advantage for now in favor of OG, if my math is on point. But as you mentioned, using those itemization choices, and the Klepto just to stay relevant and continue to scale up. Do you get nervous if you see a Taric Sona not being punished by 8 minutes? Is this still feeling okay?
I think it's fine for now. I think the level 6 mark is where we have to keep our eyes open. I love this ward, by the way, from Origen. Nukeduck is able to play extremely safely in the mid lane because he's aware of the potential dive from multiple G2 members. But the fact that they've now made this roam up allows Patrick to sit solo in the lane. Now he's reached that level 6 mark. Cold, level 6 as well. So keep your eyes on Nukeduck as he looks to try and gain priority mid. And I want to see Origen make a play towards the bot side of the map to try and start the snowball.
And likewise, I want to see Perks and Mickey respect the fact that they did give an EXP advantage to Patrick. A lot of these times, while these two guys have made some highlight moments, there are some blunders where they play a bit over-aggressive, play to the limit of their champions, and don't respect things like a Varus ultimate.
Not going to have any room for error over the course of the series today. G2 going to group force up, use the pressure from Wonder up top, as well as Caps in the mid lane to unlock that red buff. They're going to steal it away. Taking a look, there's already one plate secured in favor of Origen in the mid lane. And obviously down bottom, we can see the pressure of this Varus Galio shoving into Taric Sona as Perks and Mickey back away. That Paranoia is available for a dive, but a very, very good ward from G2 spots it out.
And they're frankly just rewarded with this pressure, not to just force the dive with the EXP advantage, but also the fact that it's a mountain dragon on top of it. So they say, okay, we don't need to go for the dive. Instead, we can just turn on the Drake.
Now Perks has just hit level 6. Jankos is coming around the corner.
Oh, Jankos may actually be close enough to contest. Patrick is split off from the rest of the team. He's going to get stunned up. Patrick's in trouble down bottom. Heroes Endless comes down, but that's one more for G2. Patrick's able to escape for now. The cleanse, as well as the chain of corruption, buys just enough time. But the dragon is thwarted, and G2 get the kill.
And now it's Origen with the mistake. They leave Cole to solo the Drake and don't respect Jankos' ability to just walk up and fight. Caps was in a position to help out Jankos, and with the numbers advantage, G2 come out on top.
But it's a great read from G2 and something that you need to get used to with this team. We always talk about how methodical Origen are, but G2 are a team that believe that because they have the better players, they can look for 60% plays and make them work out. So they're constantly finding opportunities like that that you don't expect teams to take, and then they turn them in their favor.
What a fantastic start to the series for Jankos. 2-0 up. There's a lot of pressure up in the top lane. Alfari! Oh, he gets taken out by Wonder. There's a reply kill from Cole, but Wonder just dashes in, uses that Vanguard's Edge in his entire kit, and quite easily picks up the kill. Plus 20 CS, a kill and an assist to his name.
Somewhat expected in the early laning phase. Aurelia does have a lot of power, especially against a Hecarim that doesn't have those items yet completed. But the fact that he was able to find what was effectively a solo kill, very impressive stuff, and speaks to the impressive split that Wonder has had so far. You can have a look at how he sets this up. If you land the stun, it becomes very easy to get that follow-up, and he has a red buff as well, so good stuff there from the side of Wonder.
Yeah, and it's particularly on Wonder. It's hard to shine when you're on a team with the LEC MVP in Caps. It feels like every time you're talking about this team, you're talking about Perks and Caps and Jankos. And unfortunately, Wonder has fallen to the wayside a little bit in his praise, but I think he personally is the best Aurelia player on this team. I know, it's high praise.
Very high praise.
By the way,
indeed.
sorry, I just love the nuance. The best Aurelia player on this team.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that is a real thing that you have to talk about, especially when you look at the caliber of players on G2 Esports.
Now, one of the things that Wonder also helped G2 out with is the fact that he drew the Nocturne ultimate, and at early levels, this is a very long cooldown, which means that the bot lane of G2 have nothing to really be afraid of, because the risk of a dive is a couple more minutes away. So they're continuing to stall out, continuing to get to that team fight phase, which is ultimately where they want to get to.
And it's not just about the fact that it impacts Cold on the Nocturne, but also Mithy on the Galio. And, you know, it's about how these ultimates are being used in tandem. So it really does put Origen on a timer for what they're able to eat on this map.
Well, we'll see what Origen can do. They're currently even in gold, despite this advantage that Wonder sits on in the top lane. Plus 20 CS, you saw his at 15 averages there on the screen of 14. Lowest number of isolated deaths as well, so definitely plays very cautiously, but this is a very tense, very close start to the game, and it gets me very excited about the prospects of what Origen can do, because make no mistake, Origen are the underdogs this series, after seeing what G2 have done all split long, and how G2 played last weekend. But Origen have improved after every single defeat, and Vedius, you had a great analogy that just like Saiyans, OG come back stronger after every single fight.
Yeah, they certainly do, and yesterday I feel like they demonstrated against Fnatic. And now we'll see if they can demonstrate it against the powerhouse of G2, a team that has received nothing but praise throughout the entirety of the split. And even though they struggled, they too have bounced back as well. Now we see Cold, level 6. We have the teleport from Alfari, but once again, Jankos is here.
We look forward as the pressure here on OG to make the plays. Frosco and looking at the available teleports, summoner spells, and knowing that Dragon is still available.
I mean, this is super telegraphed from Origen. The fact that they also pulled Alfari, you can see Hecarim coming down from the mid lane there. They have all of their ultimates, so this is throwing down the gauntlet and saying, we are going to take this Infernal. Mountain, you must fight us.
Quick shot, you need to be ready because that fight's about to kick off.
All right, here comes Caps. He's jumped into the fight. Will be able to self-cast and survive a few seconds longer. The Onslaught of Shadows goes forward. There's the engage. The Vanguard's Edge goes down. And Hourglass will buy some more time. The first kill. Wonder onto Cold. Now Origen are running for their lives. Mickey gets Mithy. It's not done yet. The Dazzle finds a stun. Patrick's in trouble, but not dead just yet. Nukeduck's trying to turn this one back around. 3 on 4. A Gallop, a trot to slot. Alfari gets at least one back. Now the Realm Warp will pick Elf some low health targets. Patrick jumps onto Perks. Perks is low on mana. That Song of Celerity will not get you away. Nukeduck prisons the rune of Mickey and turns it around. It ends up being a fight for Origen.
And what looked like a close fight at the start turned so heavily in favor of Origen. Unfortunately for G2, they ran out of survivability tools, and that was their go window. Origen come out on top.
It's the fact that the Sona and the Taric aren't ready for that. But again, it was telegraphed, and again, it's G2. You can see while players say it is sometimes greed. They knew that the fight was set up, they saw Origen make the rotation, and they chose to take it anyway.
And we're going to get to see in this replay how talented Wonder is, because at the start of this fight, things did look dire. Caps engages before the Sona and Taric are really in position to provide that survivability. And you'll see here, he goes in, he soaks up a lot of the damage, and then keep your eyes on this Aurelia, the Wonder in the backline. He's going to land a beautiful ultimate onto multiple members. He's then going to buy time, and he's going to use his mobility to dance through the fight, chip apart some of the big damage dealers, but of course Alfari and Nukeduck still able to kite back, and then they can start to swing the fight back in their favor.
Yeah, and Nukeduck, the big hero here, and also a huge beneficiary of all of this. The fact that he gets the shutdown on the Aurelia, and I believe is now sitting 3-0-3, and that's exactly what Origen need for this composition. composition. Again, G2's 5v5 is only going to get stronger from this point, but if Origen's Nuke Duck is ahead, their ability to play a side lane is something G2's comp cannot do as well.
And now, after that fight on the bot side of the map, Origen immediately swap their duo up towards top. They secure the first tower of the game, and now they're looking to make a play for Rift Herald. So, quick shot, we have to look at ultimates. Is everything available? Are both teams ready to fight?
No, not yet. Mythy does not have that entrance. Realm Warp is a few seconds away. We've just crested the 15-minute mark. Origen have got a tower advantage and 1,000 gold lead. It does not feel significant at all. And I'm still waiting to see what Perks and Mickey can do on this Taric Sona. You guys can vote which jungler you want to watch in the next game. Both of these junglers on the hunt for their first title. Jankos in particular, one of the longest standing members here in Europe, without a victory despite many attempts. Right, Mountain Drake looks to be the way of Origen, Rift Herald the way of G2.
And it's an objective trade, so if G2 can actually burn this Herald in time before Origen are able to interrupt them, it's kind of them saying, okay, if we take this mountain, if we take the bot tower, we know that they're going to have Herald, but ultimately this unlocks so much Baron potential for us on this composition, especially when we have a Blade of the Rune King Spect Varus.
Also, it allows Origen to get priority on the mid lane. And so they had the ability to set up on that tower, but instead decide to back away. They're going to now look to reset. And the map kind of returns to a neutral state. We've had a pretty exciting first couple of minutes. Quick shot and Frost. The game is kind of going somewhat as we expected. We kind of looked at G2 to play around topside. They made a couple of fumbles, but then their team fighting, their ability to look for opportunities was still very strong. Jankos being the primary engager, currently sitting at 2-0-2, while OG, they've been buying their time. They've been looking for these picks and still looking very prominent in these team fights. And Nuke Duck really is the guy that is stepping up in this final, the guy that, yet to find a title domestically, definitely wants it today.
And that's kind of the questions that I had, you know, is a 1K advantage for Origen enough for the scaling of Perks and Mickey's champions? I like that G2 have got a lot of their gold funneled on the likes of Aurelia and Olaf, so you're not just relying on Sona Taric's damage in the 5v5, that they get to play true side support. But on Origen's side, I love the fact that Nuke Duck was able to pick up those kills, and if the team fights go sideways, again, unlocks that side lane pressure for them.
All right, Perks instantly able to escape that chain of corruption. Obviously has that cleanse available to him, which he did use. And that means Patrick unable to find the follow-up. Now, OG are still playing very proactive. OG are still playing very forward. And they've got those first item spikes, as you can see on the end.
But I want to point out the fact that Cold is sitting on the BF sword, so looking for the GA. That item is going to be massive because it's going to allow him so much freedom to dive into the back lane. Again, they need to find the assassination, and something like a GA might be the watershed moment for Origen in a team fight.
Now, one of the things you talked about in draft as well, Frost, was Origen's ability to also play the 1-3-1. They can split up the map if they want to because they have both the Rise and the Hecarim, and they can just use Varus to just wave clear in mid. But with the Herald now coming out, OG being forced to group.
All right, I feel like fight needs to get yelled. Cold is going to get zoned away by Caps and Jankos. Actually, Cold's going to be in trouble. Shroud of Darkness will buy some time. Looking at the minimap, Nuke Duck pieced out. Looked for a flanking opportunity, decided against it.
And that's the thing, it didn't feel like fight. It felt like flank,
Yeah.
and it was a great read from both teams. Origen recognizing, okay, to start this fight, we have a champion like Hecarim. He plays for those flanks in the team fights instead of running front to back into a Sona and a Taric. Whereas G2 read that, okay, we're hunting for the Hecarim. We're zoning away the fact that Nuke Duck wants to cheat down, so both teams know exactly what the other wants to do.
And then it just comes down to execution, doesn't it? If you have the read and have the understanding, who pulls it off better?
And those are the best types of games.
Well, let's take a look at that as a momentary stutter. Wonder is able to flash away to safety. Alfari and Cold commit to their ultimates.
So this is what we'll start to see more and more. As the map opens up and these outer towers start to fall, Origen will try to use the Nocturne ultimate to either come through the lane or come through the jungle and look for picks on the side. Forget the 5v5, forget the Sona Taric double duo that creates so much chaos in these team fights. Instead, look for picks, find these small advantages, and then maybe look for a 4v5, maybe look for a 3v5 with your numbers advanced.
And for me, that feels like G2 then need to grab hold of tempo, which means that they need to respect these minion waves. They can't be being dragged around the map where Origen are able to orchestrate these picks. They need to run into a lane, grab all of their members, and just hard shove something to get Origen to respond to them, to their pressure point on the map.
But I think like one of the most challenging things that G2 are going to have to deal with is the wave clear from this Varus Galio and the pretty weak siege from the side side of G2. Once the Sona completes the Lich Bane, then her ability to take towers will definitely be a little bit stronger, but ultimately every time she approaches that tower, Galio Taunt, Varus ultimate, Nocturne ultimate, all these risks exist to try and zone you away from those objectives.
Which is why if G2 can't force Origen to fight them in the lanes, they are really dependent on these monster objectives, not just the Baron, but things like the Drake. So a rotation of an Ocean Dragon can actually hurt G2 because there's less incentive that if they get control over this objective, if they create a perfect scenario to be fought over, that Origen say, that's fine, we don't want it anyway, we'll trade you across the map.
Keep your eyes on Nukeduck in the bot lane. Remember how we said that you can send Cold to join up with one of the side lanes? Nukeduck can do the same thing. This is something that they showcased during the regular season, having multiple members show up in a single lane.
Oh, this time round there's no flash, but a very good stun, as well as a dash. Vanguard's edge will buy some time, but Wonder trying to escape with his life. Mithy's going to join the fray and the fight, and Wonder will lose his life. Caps is now on the wrong side of 3 members of OG. The root will catch out Alfari. Alfari's going to get caught out. This will be a 1-for-1 trade, and the kill is secured by the Captain Perks.
Ends up being a 1-for-1 overall, but now Origen can look to gain priority on the mid lane. If they can secure this tower, it's definitely worth it, but I don't think the minion wave is in the right place. And G2 actually equalize, so great teleport there from Caps to just buy time for the rest of his team to come in for the collapse.
Also fancy footwork from Wonder to buy enough time that Caps could even get the TP down there. You can see the clear direction from Origen though, the fact that they were trying to use the Rise ultimate to just grab one and get the hell out of dodge.
So we can see again here how Nukeduck weaves his way in through the fog of darkness, in from behind. Wonder, he feels like something is amiss, he's not entirely sure what, and he does what he can to just buy time for the teleport to come through. And to his credit, as you said, Frost, he buys a lot of time, because you can see on the minimap the Olaf and the Taric coming through, but just before Alfari can get away, he gets rooted up by Caps and locked down for the rest of his team to clean up.
A game of inches in the execution to get Alfari out of there, and that is the difference between G2 and Origen the last time they faced.
Oh, this is such a fantastic start to the series. We're about even on gold, 2 towers to 2, 6 kills to 8. Origen have the smallest of advantages across most of the metrics, but the 2 dragons will be pivotal. The next one will be Infernal, and OG have had slightly better decision-making around this objective.
Now, one of the big complaints I saw from the fans yesterday was why didn't Fnatic buy any Grievous Wounds? Well, fans, you'll be happy to see Morello Nomicon completed 2nd for Rise in the mid lane. Those Grievous Wounds will be applied, that healing will be reduced from the side of G2. Very valuable as these team fights start to group up and occur, as the Baron is now on the board.
All right, mid lane pressures. Origen are going to be in some trouble, but here comes Alfari from the backside. The ultimate from Irelia doesn't do a lot. The stun will not find a target. Paranoia has been used, pop timeout, and no target is dove onto. Crucial to note, both Perks and Mickey held onto theirs.
Yeah, and that's the key thing about G2. They are so good at not just blowing all of their ultimates, all of their cooldowns into a team fight. As soon as the defensive Paranoia came down so that Aurelia couldn't leap forward, continue to find targets, didn't know what she was going into, they said, okay, don't waste anything else, hold on to the Sona and Taric ultimate, and that means that G2 can't just, Origen can't just turn it back and look for aggressive play.
It felt like a game of chicken. Both teams were saying, burn your ults, and neither one of them ended up doing it outside of OG using those defensive ones. And you're in this situation where neither team can make a move, but G2, they walk away as the happy team. They keep their mid lane tower alive. They can still group up, and they're in a position now to look for a re-engage.
Look, 2 item spikes starting to come in across the board. GA picked up there for Cold. Rageblade picked up for Patrick as well. Rageblade being worked towards for Perks. We've got Ludens and the Proto Belt for Caps. What I'm trying to say is the power continues to escalate. We are still very, very close as far as the game is concerned, and Baron and fighting around these objectives, or these big team fights rather, are going to be what makes and breaks the game for either squad.
And also the summoner spells of the teleports. The fact that Caps and Wonder both have the TP available to match Alfari and Nukeduck in these side lanes, it's about who is going to abuse those cooldowns. So Caps used it last time to try to secure the return kill. There's a window here that Origen can try to play around the fact that Caps needs to be grouped up, that Origen are going to be stuck in a 1-4 or a 5v5.
It's interesting that you bring that up as well, because one of the fascinating things that I love about G2 is the way in which they're so efficient with their resources as well. Because you talk about how G2, Origen rather, might be forced into grouping up in this situation where they want to avoid, and that's actually happened a lot for Alfari. He's been constantly grouping up with his team, and he's actually had a pretty big deficit. He's a whole level down behind Wonder, whereas G2, Caps is the same level, or now just a level behind NukeDuck, but he's doing extremely well in terms of farms. Same for Wonder. The bot lane is actually doing incredibly well in terms of the gold as well, and it feels like G2, they just get all their gold, or as much gold as possible, onto all their members, so they constantly stay relevant, even though they're dying all the time.
Wow, there's the crescendo, insta-cleanse and flash. Patrick escapes with his life for now. Mythiu tries to defensively move away. He got that taunt off just to slow down Caps in his tracks. Now Alfari may need to use the ult defensively, and he does. Gets across the wall. Origen escape with their life, but G2, they set up the play. They get the spells, and now they're going to get the tower.
Great pick on the side of G2. No, it doesn't result in a kill, but it results in an objective, and Wonder is just free farming on the bot side. This is going to force NukeDuck to come and group because G2, they're continuing their push.
And it's not just the immediate objectives that G2 were able to secure, it's also now the next team fight. The fact that Patrick had to expend so much once he was caught out going around a corner, that's an Infernal that spawns in 1 minute. That's a Baron that both teams have been posturing and dancing around, and now the AD carry won't have the security of having Flash available.
And that's a problem, especially when you look at Olaf, Irelia, Lissandra. Good luck with that one. Before you add, on top of that, the Cosmic Radiance, and Origen now have lost control of the gold lead, albeit it's tiny, of course, right? It's still going to be a few very big team fights. Perks can use that Song of Celerity to escape. His Crescendo comes available right now, but I'm impressed by Origen. They got smashed last weekend. They come back, they win yesterday. This is a team that has such a limited amount of finals experience, but a super huge number of LEC games combined.
I mean, the thorn in Origen's side right now is the fact that G2 have been able to keep their mid lane tower alive till 26, 27 minutes in this game. As soon as they can knock that down, it's going to give them so much more access. And when you have an early Mountain Dragon, they needed to have control over the Baron to threaten that much earlier, or at least use it as a pressure point to orchestrate some picks. But because G2 have held the line, they're actually stalling out Origen long enough that the Sona and Taric are now online. Their 5v5 is very scary.
I also think that the way in which Origen set up the 1-3-1 hasn't been optimal either. Like, the fact that they made a couple of small mistakes in the early game, given room for G2 to actually find a couple of picks, has made it harder. And every time G2 make a play on the side lane, it actually ends up going even across both sides. So I feel like that right now they're not leveraging.
Oh, there's the flash crescendo. A flashless Patrick gets chunked down. That was very well played by G2. Remember, Origen were trying to push this top lane. Now all of a sudden, NukeDuck has to try to escape with his life. He's got flash and TP available, as well as that Realm Warp. I don't quite know if anyone's chasing him just yet. Perks not going to use that E to close the gap. Instead, G2 are starting Baron.
Looks like NukeDuck does have his teleport available, and Cold is alive. Has the Paranoia and Flash available. Everything to try and steal this one away.
Yeah, and the Realm Warp was just used from NukeDuck. He's trying to clear out the mid lane and then can walk over. So they say this is going to take a long time for them to do.
And it is getting very, very low. NukeDuck is sticking on the tower. He hasn't peeled away yet. That's a dash over the wall from Wonder. Wonder jumps onto Alfari. Cold is sitting behind the pit. Alfari runs for his life. That's the Onslaught of Shadows used. I'm waiting to see if Cold goes in. Mythiu's in trouble. Mythiu's dead. He's killed by Wonder. The Baron's inside the pit. Cold, can he steal it? No, he cannot. G2 get Baron. Cold goes down. NukeDuck continues to push in the mid lane, but it's G2 Esports in control.
And we talked about the survivability that G2 have with this composition. Wonder was able to go over 1v3. Caps has now teleported in to try and cut NukeDuck off.
All right, let's see what happens here. NukeDuck turns that around. Bramble back in the use for some defense as Wonder will join the fray. NukeDuck is going to be in a lot of trouble. It is just a matter of time before he gets run down. G2 take control.
And it's the confidence of G2 to make these types of plays. You know, we always talk about the perfect Baron setup. You've got to have the deep vision. You need to clear out the blast cone. You never want to go for the 50-50 smite. But G2 are so confident that they can execute on this. The fact that they send Wonder over the wall, trying to find Cold, not realize he's on the top, to force away anyone else to get involved. And at this point, Origen are like, okay, high pressure situation. Can we make the right call? Can we make the right bet? And unfortunately, they bet wrong. Cold gets into the pit, but they cannot get the smite steal.
Everything comes together for G2. let's not forget this all started because they found that initial pick onto Patrick in the mid lane. They burnt both summoners. They then find the same pick onto him. They have not been using the team fight power of Saractona. They've been using the pick power of their composition to turn this into a Baron, and now they're setting up a siege onto Origen's base.
Both times Patrick was caught out by Perks, the captain of G2, the role-swapped AD carry that's playing Sona. Still counts. He manages to find the crescendos. The inhibitor is secured in the mid lane, and Wonder is pushing down bot. He's got teleport available to him, and Origen are chasing some sort of team fight. G2 decides to turn this one around. Cosmic Radiance was used though.
It's just the fact that you can't give G2 any opening. That was a missing flash on an ADC, and it resulted in a mid-inhib being torn apart.
Beautiful stuff right now from G2, and now they're staying grouped. They don't need to split apart. They're working around Wonder. Level 17 on the Aurelia, and Caps is looking for the flank.
All right, Patrick has got his Flash and his Cleanse available. Here comes Alfari. That's at least one level of engage. Cosmic Radiance, remember, still on cooldown, but Alfari so low. 1-2 quick kills for G2. The re-engage from Wonder. He is just destroying Origen, and G2 ace Origen.
Beautiful fight from the side of G2. 5-0. Game 1 is going to be locked down from the side of G2.
And I don't know what you're supposed to do. I love the fact that the Sonateric was paired with such high damage like Wonder's Aurelia and Genkos' Olaf. They took over this game.
This game came down to one Baron call, but it was the wrong one for Origen. G2 go up 1-0 in the finals. Look at Perks and Caps. Caps might be the first European player to win a title on 2 different teams. Perks will reach 5 titles if he wins. Jankos will get 1. G2 Esports 1-0 up, and that is a very happy, except Jankos squad.
He smiled in the end, got there.
And I guess what I'm looking at right now is what quality bar do I think Origen is bringing to this game? Because I felt like that in game 1, Nukeduck was having a very solid performance. He looked great. But we didn't see the successful punishments towards the bot side of the map. We saw Alfari falling incredibly behind against Wonder, honestly being outclassed in this game. And I feel like that if Origen fail to execute upon their win conditions again, it's going to look exactly like we saw last week from the side of G2, where they just continue to dominate their opposition.
And I like the point that you brought up in-game, that is this idea of the lane assignments from Origen, that while they had the ability to play to the side lanes, that they couldn't quite figure out what the right tempo and the pace for it was. And anytime they're trying to make up their mind, trying to decide where are they going to attack, what wave are they going to prioritize, G2 were already on the ball, looking for picks, punishing flashes, setting up barons, denying wards. This is a team that you can't give any time to breathe, because it feels like they think and they react so much faster.
I mean, if you step back and you look at that sequence of plays that led to Baron, that was the game-defining moment. Of course, it was because Patrick got caught by a flash crescendo, and whatnot. But how do you possibly start to evaluate those decision-making when you come into the next game?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me, for Origen, is they now lock in blue side moving into game 2. Last week, they were red side 3 games back-to-back, and I think that having the priority in the draft, being able to draft the Sonateric yourself, or force G2 to take it away, just gives you a little bit more options, a little bit more freedom in the draft. And I think that if they can get a little bit more standard game against G2, then maybe we can see a little bit more from them.
I also want more agency from Cold. I want him to have an impact in the early game. And it doesn't have to translate to just, ganking repeatedly on the lanes, but the ability to skirmish and try for the Scuttle Crabs. Vision is so important for Origen, securing their lanes, allowing them to move freely in between them. Mithy is a hyper-heavy roaming support. Nukeduck loves to roam as well and play to the side lanes, but if Cold is relegated to his jungle, if they're not able to clear out those runways, then Origen seem to fall apart or slow down.
Well, we'll find out what they decide to do in a moment. For now, G2 started the final with the win. To break down how they did it, here's our analysts.
Thank you very much, Quickshot. Blink and you miss it. The first Nexus goes down for G2 Esports. And before we get into any replays we may have, at the end of that, you guys both just said G2 is so insane at this game. What is it about this game that makes you say that?
I think there was a lot of it, and ultimately what it came down to was control. The control to slow down the game once you saw a Nukeduck with 4 kills, and then ultimately that Baron, where they just kept it at 2,000 HP, knowing exactly exactly when they could burst that one down without risking the 50-50.
I feel like we always saw this G2 that kind of rolled over the enemy with individual outplays, with team compositions that really didn't make sense together. They had a Jace up top lane and everyone kind of did their own thing. This is the G2 we knew in the regular split. But now we have a refined G2 that actually plays around the strategy and is so sharp to play to their win condition. We saw it throughout. They had a rough fight. Ryze got ahead. They knew they didn't have to play around the split push. Right the moment when they saw Varus no cleanse, we know that we need to engage on him and take the Nashor, and they executed perfectly.
Yeah, they did. So let's take a look at how it happened in the order of the game. Starting with, as you said, they got in a tricky position against Origen here when it looks favorable for them, but it turns around for Origen.
Yeah, I mean, the start of the fight looks really good here with the flank initially from Caps, but then watch Wonder in this fight. The dive on in looks like he's going to be able to mop up and win this one out for G2, but Nukeduck went untouched and he was able to turn it around.
I feel like the sidestep on the E that's going to save Wonder very, very soon right here is coming now. The sidestep, boom.
That's clean,
very
baby.
Smooth. That is the nuke that we know and love. He chases, he has a flash if he wants to pick up more kills, but it's fantastic that OG can go head-to-head in these team fights against G2.
Yeah, I absolutely love it as well, but there is, of course, immediately then for me a bit of a reason for concern, right? Because coming into the series, you say Nukeduck is the guy that can stand up to Caps. Fair. Here he gets 4 kills. If anything, he should be in a great position. But what happens? Why can't they hold on to that advantage on Nukeduck?
Well, they had the advantage the whole time, and that's what was difficult for me, because they didn't really convert it into much more. They had this super strong 1-3-1 that they were going to try to build upon, but immediately after that fight, G2 actually split the map. They went top for Herald, where they gave Origen the Mountain Drake after that, and it actually slowed down the game a lot. Cold wasn't able to find as many plays looking for Nocturne ults around his side laners as I would have liked to see.
I feel like these compositions is kind of the opposite of what they played in the first series, where OG was the composition they wanted to group and team fight and set up around the Nashor. I felt like what G2 did better, they created opportunities for themselves. They knew that they needed to give up on side, they needed to group up, find the picks, and then just force the Nashor as soon as possible to use their composition.
Something we talked about last week is the fact that they create a diversion and then they hit on the side of the map that you're not paying attention. I think this, again, is one of those examples in which their decision-making is very, very clean. They see Patrick, they kill Patrick, and then they go for Baron.
And then we see the control, how they pushed out Ryze earlier. Wonder jumps over the wall. They keep the Baron at a very, this limit here at 2K, and they remain so healthy because of the Taric and the Sona.
Also, they keep it almost exactly at that health until it's time, and it looks maybe close for Cold, but you guys said no. They primed it perfectly for Olaf.
Yeah, I think it's 11:59 at the end where he combos the E, the true damage on the Olaf with his smite as well to burst that one down and make it so that even though Cold got the timing right to flash into the pit, it was not enough to end up stealing it and trying to stall out the game for OG.
Beautiful play from G2. Also, you know, interesting in the context of the development of a best of 5 that they come out with a composition which is a bit different from what we have come to expect of them. Of course, also with the Sona, Taric rather, bottom lane, and kind of a different style. And I think that gets in the mind of your competitor, right? The fact that you show this different thing that they couldn't have really prepared for. Sona Taric, I mean, they should have seen coming.
They've got the Blitzcrank.
But not versus G2.
But that's the thing. They have the Blitzcrank, but they couldn't pick it because they first rotationed on red side as Origen. They went for the Galio, which you know is going to be a support. That's when G2 lock in the Sona Taric. If Origen hadn't gone for a support, I don't think we see that duo.
So they put themselves in that position?
I think they did. I mean, it was almost like G2 baited them into picking that. They left it open.
I feel like at the same time, though, I think the Varus is a great pick into it because you have the CC and you also have the healing reduction on the E. I think the bigger issue when you look at the draft, I think, is the Nocturne pick because we needed something to snowball the Hecarim early because everything's going to come down to the split push. Aurelia could hold on strong and didn't really lose any towers, and I think that was the bigger issue when you play a 1-3-1 composition.
Also, we heard it already from Frostkern as well. We need to see a little bit more from Cold. Do you guys agree with that sentiment?
I agree. I think it's the champion, really, because Nocturne limits it. We saw there was a 2v2 top lane early on where he couldn't do much. They lost because it's Olaf versus Nocturne. You're not going to win that. All of the early game playmaking actually came from Alphari and Nukeduck roaming to each other's lanes. It was not Cold. So I want to see Cold on something like the Rek'Sai or the Jarvan. Elise, why not? I need early game playmaking, especially if there's a Sona Taric in the game again.
Yeah, Origen, they have selected blue side for the next game, so we finally see a change up there. What do you think the planning is going into game 2 for them?
I think they can look to ban maybe the Sona in the first rotation if they don't want to risk giving it up because honestly, I mean, It's hard because I'm really
I mean,
struggling
it's hard
with
for
it.
them too, yeah.
No, yeah, because the question is, do you risk giving it over again? Is the Blitzcrank good enough? It was against Fnatic. I'm not so sure against G2. I need them, again, to have strong jungle pressure, and if they're going to leave it up, I want to see the Blitz.
I like the fact that they picked blue because they get to pick the stronger jungler. I am pretty sure we're going to see either a first pick Jarvan, first pick Rek'Sai. That is where Jonas has shown his comfort, and that is where he's been a shining light in the previous games.
Yeah, definitely so. So now when we look at everything, yesterday and today, first game combined, of course, quite a surprise for many. OG played fantastically versus Fnatic. Now they go one game down versus G2, which is this mountain to beat, this incredible competitor they are up against. What is the gut feeling as to how this series is going to evolve?
My gut feeling is that had Origen been able to close out this game, we were going to see 5 today. Because G2 were able to shut it down and not let it happen, I'm actually really nervous for Origen. I don't know if they're going to be able to come back after a loss that I think should have been a win for them.
Should we not give them a bit more credit with the development we've seen?
I just feel like we've seen a development in G2 as well.
Yeah.
I feel like they've actually play in a strategic way that you can relate to. They're always on point with what they need to do, whether it's 1-3-1, whether it's a team fight composition. I feel like they're very precise in their gameplay, and this is what was lacking throughout the regular split.
Coming from back from the break, we're also going to hear from Expeke, but we are going to take a quick break. G2, they are on their way towards their very first LEC title with that win. We'll see if Origen can bounce back in Game 2.
Now the undertow's available. Duet will not find a